of videos, by the way. So Mel has a video, 5.5 minutes, ultimately the importance of their role, right, as a caller. Secondly, she breaks up the whys behind the 5 basics of what every call should include. And then she does a walkthrough of the approach. So all in all, these videos are 30 minutes. At a minimum, bare bones, what do you need to do? Well, first and foremost, make sure they knock out their Vector Live videos. Make sure they complete their tax paperwork. And you do want to set the expectation that you want them to take notes and that you'll be reviewing the notes. She also has a fill-in-the-blank document that she created to go along with her videos, so you would be reviewing that. And then, of course, we gotta, at a minimum, even in an emergency state, they gotta role play, right? At least 3 to 5 times before getting on the phone. But here's the deal. In my life, I live in a world, sunshine and rainbows. So let's talk about the ideal scenario, where if you do have more time, what are the things that you would want to include? And once you learn what the ideal scenario is, then you'll be able to determine, even in an emergency state, what are the things that you could find a way to make sure still happens.
So can we go back one slide?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna microtape in this.
I'm on YouTube Live, yeah.
Oh, I'm on YouTube. That's fancy.
Don't play any music. That's what happened there. Okay, go ahead. Wait, what? Okay, go ahead. Wait.
Everybody got their phones?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, beautiful. So let's talk about scenario 2, which is the ideal scenario. So we have a little bit more time. This would be maybe an additional hour with the add-ins that I'm going to teach you, an additional role play. So as you can see, it's really still not that much more time that you are spending. I would say in an ideal scenario, you could split it up between a Saturday and a Sunday. That way it's not overwhelming, right? You're teaching them all this stuff and then all of a sudden they gotta get on the phone. So maybe you teach them everything they need to know on a Saturday, and then Sunday they have, an extra, 30 minutes or more, or to an hour of role play. That way we're breaking it up. But I really felt, everybody, with our time today, it would be better spent, instead of going over, the fill-in-the-blank document from Mel, which I know you all can read. You wouldn't have made it this far without being able to do that. So our time is going to be better spent me actually sharing with you the add-ins, the analogies, the key phrases, and the things that I know that I've done, the predecessors before me have done, to really be successful. So let's dive in to what I suggest for manager add-ins. So first thing that you would do when they get there, well, let's back up. Who can tell me, day 1 of rep training, what's the objective of day 1 of rep training? Confidence. What else? Pop fear bubbles, conviction, connection, right? And I think the same thing is true when working with our recruiting assistants. So I think taking 5 minutes before you start the training to do a little bit of an icebreaker and a get to know. So maybe you have them fill out a get to know you sheet. One thing I'm doing in my current company, I actually use Mike's Dreams List from his Grab Tomorrow book, because it has a lot of really cool questions that stimulate great conversation for getting to know somebody. And it's just 5 minutes, right? But it shows them that you care. Remember, people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay, next step, everybody, would be building a little bit of credibility in Cutco. Let's keep in mind, from their perspective, if they are not a part of our business and they've never sold Cutco before, they're thinking that they're Walmart knives, and they're just calling a random list on a piece of paper. So we got to build the conviction and the credibility. So I like to cut a penny, I like to cut leather, so that they can actually see how great the product is. And obviously we're not trying to oversell here, but we just want to show them that the rep job is pretty simple. So I like to show credible sources. So I show Wall Street Journal, All American, Better Business Bureau. But ultimately, we want to shape their mentality, right? So that if somebody says something negative about our company, they can have enough confidence and conviction to say, yes, it's the knife thing. Okay, and that starts with the conviction that we can build in training. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is really just review the recruiting funnel. So this will be a good opportunity to play Mel's first video, which is essentially the importance of their role. And what I like to do, this is a key phrase that I like to use so that they understand the importance of their role. I say, look, your job is not as challenging as being a heart surgeon. So you don't have somebody's life on the line, but your job is definitely more important than stocking shelves at a department store. So they understand that it's important, but they don't feel overwhelmed by the pressure, right? And then you play Mel's video for the importance of the role. And then everybody, I would dive into a little bit of your own recruiting story and the impact that it's had on your life. So think of it like a shortened, condensed personal story that you would do in rep training. So I would tie it back to maybe the first RA that you spoke to on the phone. Were they really nice? Did they have great directions? Can you leverage that conversation? Talk about the impact that the business has had on your life, personally and professionally, where you are now, and tie it back to that initial phone call and say, hey, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be opening my own office. I wouldn't have all these opportunities in front of us if it wasn't for that first initial phone call. So that way they can connect the dots for what they're going to be doing. Then we want to dive into, your office mission and vision and everything that you're looking to create. So do you have adjectives that you want your business to be about this summer? Is it about integrity? Is it about hard work? Is it about commitment? Right? And then what are your goals? How many people do you need to launch? How many PRs do you need to schedule so that they can see the bigger picture? Right? So break it down for them. Share rep success stories. Introduce them to reps on your team as well. That's huge. And then another key phrase that I say here that you may want to get down, because I don't want them to ever feel like we're desperate to recruit, right? And just like we never want to create that in the interview either. So I say, look, I'm confident, even if we stop recruiting, Cutco would still be sold. But the reason we continue to recruit is because we just want to impact more people. And my job this summer is going to be a lot easier with your help than without, right? So that's a key phrase I like to say to set it up the right way. Okay, then we can talk a little bit about the goals that we have for them, just like we do for our reps. I usually just hit on the fact that they have the opportunity for stable pay, stable hours. Maybe they have an opportunity to earn a little bit more based on the performance they bring. Typically, I hit on an opportunity for them to have a great experience, boost their resume, be a part of a winning team. And then most importantly, something that isn't in the videos that you'll want to make sure you hit on is the standards and the expectations for the role and what you expect. And the way that I set this up is I say, look, we wouldn't know what to praise, right? We wouldn't know what to improve, and it would be pretty chaotic. And I use the analogy of, any athlete or champion in their profession. I always use Michael Phelps for some reason because I'm not a sports person, but you look at Michael Phelps, right? He's won multiple gold medals. He didn't get where he is today by just saying, hey, I'm going to get to the other end of the pool whenever I get there, right? It's because he had standards for his performance. So same thing here, and I want to, review some important standards with you. Now, let me ask you a question just so we can get a little participation going. What qualities in terms of attitude or characteristics do you think you would want to see in your recruiting assistants this summer? Just shout out some answers.
Articulate.
Okay, what else?
Hardworking.
Energetic, hardworking, love that. What else? Reliable. Proactive, great. So I think, in terms of attitude, right, going over those things that are most important, I usually hit on positive attitude, work ethic, being a team player, being reliable, great communication, being open to feedback, things of that nature. Okay, in terms of performance standards, that I would definitely suggest jotting down or taking a picture of here, because it is not included in the videos, is making sure they understand that the expectation for show percentage is 35%. I usually say 3 tall people, 1 short person. Calls per hour, 20 to 25 calls per hour. Setting at least 2 to 3 each hour. Contact or set, no more than 2 to 1. Meaning they shouldn't have to speak to more than 2 people to get 1 person set up. Talking about keeping track of the calls that they make and using a tracker and setting the expectation that they will turn in that tracker to you at the end of every single shift, right? That you expect them to set 2 each hour, to enter into Vector Live at the end of the night, make sure that they mark the secondary source, being on time, communicating if they're running late, or if they have a doctor's appointment that they must call out. Really important to set that expectation. Also, not on the screen here, everybody, that I would make sure you get down. Make sure that you find somebody that doesn't have any vacations during goal period, right? So the expectation is no vacations, and that we do work on holidays, right? So Mother's Day, Father's Day, they can't be thinking that they can call out. So you do want to make sure you review that in the interview and again in the training to make sure that there's consistency and no miscommunication from the beginning. Okay? Now let's talk a little bit about diving into more depth about the power of PRs and what it actually does for the business. Because in the videos, it's really not all that extensive. And I think hearing your perspective is going to help create a little bit more conviction in the program. So really my three-prong, if you will, promotion is first and foremost, PRs really helps the team, right? It helps create the culture that we want, the cool place to be. Word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising, right? If you see 2 different restaurant options down the road and one of them is someone that your friend recommended you to, which one are you going to go to? Obviously the one that your friend referred. And birds of a feather flock together. We found that they're more productive, that they sell more Cutco, right? So it really helps team culture. The second thing, guys, is that it helps representatives get a chance to help their friends, right? So they can make more money working with us than working at McDonald's, okay? I usually say that. And then I gave different examples, PR examples that are big. You know, I use Mike recommending Stacy, by the way, which is a friend, I think, from his lab class. They didn't even know her very well, and she turned out to be a district manager with the company and pilot sales manager. I use Brandon Denny, who's won like 7 different trips to Mexico for recommending friends. So using examples creates that conviction, okay? And then the third component of your promotion is that representatives get a chance to help themselves. So you'll talk a little bit about, obviously, the incentive prizes that representatives can win. And you'll want to hit on, too, that it's a win for them as a recruiting assistant, because they'll have an opportunity to win more bonus or contests or prizes. So ultimately, it's a win-win situation for everybody involved. Who doesn't love win-win situations? So ultimately, that's how we want to promote that. Now, in terms of expectation, by the way, so I need a little participation here. Why do you think most people leave companies? If somebody leaves a company, why do they leave? Because of the boss, okay? Could be, what else? Potentially better opportunities. So Dale Carnegie actually says that people don't leave companies. They do actually leave their manager, okay? It's actually a proven fact. Or it's that it doesn't meet up to the expectation that was set. So when it comes to PRs, we just want to make sure that we set the right expectation from the get-go. The good, the bad, the ugly, that way they know what to expect. If we set the right expectation in the interview and training, and that's what they experience, we're going to be able to maintain them. So one thing that we want to say is that, hey, most of the people that you call are going to appreciate 14 or 15 an hour, flexible schedule. Most of the people are, and some people may not. And that's really okay, right? So sometimes representatives are going to be recommending their best friend from high school, and they're going to be really easy to schedule. And then sometimes they're recommending people from middle school that they haven't talked to in years. And if they don't schedule, that's totally fine. So here's a key phrase for setting the right expectation, everybody, that I would get down. Expect the best on every single call, but if you don't schedule, just learn from it and move on to the next. So that's a key phrase I've always used. Expect the best on every call, and if you don't schedule, no big deal. Learn from it. Move on to the next. And then you do want to share with your callers a little bit more about the different types of PRs. That's not in the video either. So explaining, what D3 names are, that they essentially empty out their phones, explaining that they're going to recommend people that they know are definitely looking for work, and then people that they haven't talked to in years, so they have the right expectation. You want to talk about with the interview PRs, I typically say that since they haven't been selected for the job yet, those are usually the people that are going to be hot off the press, that are easier to schedule, so we want to contact them right away. We obviously want to preface as well with the rep driven, that they get a chance to really connect with the rep, and those are easier to schedule as well because the rep gets their friend on the phone. So if you can show examples of different lists so they can see the difference between all of them, that's always very helpful. Okay? So let's pause here and just kind of turn to your neighbor real quick and take about 15 seconds and just share like 1 to 2 top takeaways from what we went over so far. 15 seconds.
That Brennan Denny dude that had 7
But here's why. I always told them they could add negativity, but I don't like, you know, doctors like, oh, they recognize some from middle school, they have
Alright, stop. Alright, who wants to be the brave soul and just share 1 to 2 takeaways so far? Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? What you got?
So Eric's takeaway was just like the overall layout so far, having more clarity on their like RA program since it's obviously your first time around with it. So just like the overall layout is more.
Wonderful. I'll take one more.
Eddie's takeaway, it's not that as complicated as the art surgery, but it's kind of more important than just stop and shell to the public store.
Nice. I like it. Cool. Well, let's dive into the next component, everybody, which is going to be breaking up the 5 basics, right, of what every call should include. And here's my suggestion. If you're going to partner here with Mel's videos, what you would do is you would play her 5 basic video, right? You would pause it. You would debrief. They're going to fill in the blank document. You're going to ask questions. And then here are some additional things that I would suggest that you add in to really nail the point home. So really with the approach, right, it's all about creating consistency, which is designed to boost confidence. A point that I always make that isn't in the video, so a couple things, here is we've been using the same approach since the 80s, and we rarely changed it. So what does that tell you, right? And they're like, oh yeah, that it works, right? And I tell them, hey, if hundreds of people have used this script before you and they've been successful, how confident do you think that you can be that you're going to be able to be successful too? Right? You can talk about, it's not what you say, but how you say it that makes all the difference in the world. And I use what's called, some of you may have heard this before if you've heard any of my training, but it's, I didn't say he beat his wife. So hear me out for a second. So I say to the caller, so check this out. Depending on what word we emphasize, it completely changes the meaning of the sentence. So for example, if I say here, I didn't say he beat his wife, or if I say, I didn't say he beat his wife, now all of a sudden we're talking about somebody else's wife. Right? And did I change the word? No, we just changed what we emphasize in our tonality. So making that point to them, I think, is important. You can even have them do it so that they can hear the differences in their own head. I also think you want to reference here, too, how important speed is, because that is not in the video either. Speed is very important because when we talk too fast, it's like we're trying to hide something. So when we talk the appropriate speed, it shows that we're confident. And you tell them that, a confused mind to an applicant, right, they're going to say no. One thing in terms of speed, everybody, that can be really helpful is talking about punctuation. So anytime in the script where you see a period or a comma, you tell them that's where they pause and where they breathe. And by the way, for anybody that speaks quickly, by the way, I actually do this for everybody. What am I saying? You have them do a vertical line wherever there's punctuation in the script, so it signifies for them where they need to be breathing. And I found it can be very, very helpful. Okay? So let's move, by the way, let's say number 1 complete. Everybody say number 1 complete. All right, number 1 complete. Let's move on to number 2 of the 5 basics, everybody, which is building rapport. Right? So again, you'll play Mel's video. It's like 2 minutes. You're going to review the notes, fill in the blanks. Here are some important manager add-ins. Again, not in the video. So you want to say, hey, rapport is about a genuine conversation and not an interrogation. So it's not, hey, what school are you going to? Why'd you study that? How's it going? Right? It's not like that's not normal rapport or conversation. It's about a first date. And I use a first date analogy. Okay, who here wants to go on a first date with me? It can be a friendly date. Oh, Brandon. Okay, let's go. All right, so back and forward, we're just gonna ask a couple questions here, and we'll see where this is going. So are you from the area, Brandon?
Yeah.
You are? Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Tampa.
You're from Tampa? Okay, cool. And you like to travel?
I do.
Yeah? Where are some of the places that you like to travel?
Oh, I've been to Canada and New York and Texas.
Oh, okay. So imagine if being on a first date and you're talking to somebody back and forth and your response was, oh, okay, that's cool, right? And you didn't offer like any additional insight or you didn't ask another question, it would completely stifle that conversation. So I make the point to the caller that you're supposed to offer your ideas, you're supposed to offer your insight, you're supposed to ask more questions to really keep that conversation going. So I tell them that the rule of thumb is you want to ask at least 2 additional questions on top of what's already in the script. So when we're asking about school and they respond, it's 1 to 2 additional questions based on the information that they give us. And that the objective is to establish common ground based on work and based on school. And one thing, everybody, that's made a world of difference in me being able to manage and help callers is the concept of a connection book. I'm telling you, this is big. I would jot it down. I got praise for it over here in the back. It really works. Okay, and what this is, everybody, is I tell them that they need to be writing, so when they're speaking with their applicant on the phone, the objective is that they learn at least 2 to 3 fun facts about every single applicant that they talk to on the phone, and then they write it down in their connection book. And they'll also write down when they scheduled them for, and things of that nature, okay? And what I used to do to manage the callers is at the end of the week, they'd look back at their log, right, and they'd see which applicants actually showed. And when I would go back and review this with them, sometimes we'd find that the people that they had less information written about, guess what, are the ones that didn't show. So it's a good way to kind of figure out what's actually going on. And sometimes too, you'll look at, oh wow, it was a Sunday and we booked them for a Thursday interview. No wonder they didn't show. So it's a good way for you guys as managers being so freaking busy to have your hands on the pulse to be able to go back and know what the heck is going on. So I highly, highly suggest that. Okay? Let's see here. Another thing that you can do for girls that are really struggling with rapport, there are plenty, like a plethora of rapport building workshops that you can get for her and actually print out some of these questions so that way she has them in front of her. That can be very helpful. Ultimately, I just end the rapport section with, at the end of the day, this applicant is coming in because they like you, right? Because they like you, so you gotta ask them, hey, would you want to meet you, right? So that's the objective of building rapport, is just being likable. Okay, and what we want to do as far as role play with the rapport, right? So when you have more time to spend, so I would break it up and you report just the role play, or excuse me, just the rapport section. So you do student versus non-student, working versus not working, so that they have the examples of different types of callers. I would also explain the difference, this is big, between a chatty Cathy and somebody that's like pulling teeth to have a conversation, right? Because we're gonna get the applicants that wanna tell us their life story, and they're a lot easier to connect with. And then you have the ones that are giving you the one-word answers. So you wanna prep them the right way to know that we have those different types of applicants. And you can also teach for the applicants that are a little harder to connect with to ask open-ended questions. And you say, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because it's really hard not to tell a person more when you open-end it like that, okay? So just knowing the difference between the different types of callers is very, very helpful. So let's say number 2 complete.
Number 2 complete.
All right, so let's talk about now handling questions and objections. So you're gonna play Mel's video, debrief, fill in the blanks. Here are some of the most important manager add-ins. So the objection cycle that we have, everybody, which is complimenting the question, answering the question, asking another question, going back to the script. What I would suggest is that you take the objection cycle and you put it on top of their objection script. That's the very first thing you need to do, is write it at the top. But more importantly, you frame their mindset about questions and objections not being a bad thing. And I tell them it's like a cheat sheet to a test. So I say, hey, have you ever had a professor in school that told you you could have your own note card? Right? You're writing in like 8-point font to get down all the answers, but how confident are you going into that exam knowing you have all the answers in front of you? So it's the same thing here. So be confident, right? And you also want to shape their mindset that they're the ones with the job. Like, this is what I do. I go, who has a job? Oh, wait, you do. Who needs a job? Oh, wait, they do. Who has a job? Oh, wait, you do. Right? So you got this, and you're a baller. I say that all the time. So you want to shape their mindset the right way. Another thing they can do, everybody, is make their objections beautiful so that they stand out and they're easier to find. So that's one thing that you could make as their first homework assignment. Okay? But ultimately, in terms of shaping mentality, a couple other analogies that are great, is we tell them, hey, there are people, like use examples of somebody that already had a job that still came in for an interview and has been successful. So you want to shape their mentality that, hey, because we have a flexible schedule, it doesn't matter that they have another job. We can work around that. And we've had plenty of applicants that come in with us. Guess what? They start making more money here and they're able to quit their other job. And use examples of that. Also use an example of if somebody doesn't know the person that recommended them, it's okay. They still may appreciate the flexible schedule, opportunity for $14.50. They don't necessarily have to know their friend well, and use an example of that. And I have one. Emmanuel Long, a district manager in Atlanta, he came from a list. He has no clue who the Joe Schmo was that recommended him. And check it out now. He's a district manager with our company. So use that example, right? It's really all about the caller and their connection and giving them the opportunity to decide for themselves if they want to come in, right? We can also use what's called the apple pie analogy, which is one of my favorites. So they say, hey, when you're going through the drive-thru at McDonald's, they ask you if you want to get an extra apple pie, and you say no. They're going to cry themselves to sleep about it? No, they're just going to move on to the person behind you, right? Same concept. Another thing I love to do, let's see, let's pick a person. Can I have a volunteer? All right, Luke. All right, what's a food that you just absolutely can't stand?
Strawberries.
You don't like strawberries?
All fruit. I have a weird thing.
All fruit minus citrus. Thank
You really don't like strawberries?
I have a weird thing where if I eat a berry, I'll immediately throw up.
All right, cool. So let's go there. So Luke doesn't like strawberries. So Luke, what if I told you, man, that I had the world's best strawberries? I mean, they were juicy, they were nutritious, I mean, they were just sweet and the best. I mean, they won like awards. I mean, everybody freaking loves them. Would you want to try them? I mean, probably
You're trying to
not.
get me to all the time. I'm like, that just means you have the strongest tasting strawberry. Like, it's the
But
last one.
probably, see, my point is he doesn't like strawberries, so he's not really going to care that they're the world's best strawberries just because that's his preference, right? But that doesn't take away from how many other freaking people love strawberries.
Yep.
Right? So I make the point that it's the same thing with our opportunity. Right? There are so many people that, hey, if it's not their preference to come in, that's fine. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we're an award-winning product and opportunity. Yeah.
Can I interject for a second? I think, and it's easy with all this information to kind of let this provide. So much of a successful receptionist program is A, who we hire and train, the type of person, their networks, and their upbringing, their work ethic. Second is the technical skill. They have to have competence to do the job. But beyond that, I've seen a lot of managers who get the right people, who give the right training, and it's still terrible because the receptionist doesn't believe. The receptionist gets turned off. They get battered with, this is a scam. Oh, it is. Like, we're adjusting mindset to start off. And again, what Sam does really well. And Sam is a little bit exceptional. She's an outlier where her people will want to like go to the depths of hell to fight for a couple kind of deal. So you just need someone to know how good the job is. That's why you have to show the product in the interview. Like I see it all the time back in the receptionist stage. I can't remember if it was Andrews or it was one of them that year's branch. I remember talking about it with one of the receptionists, and the receptionist didn't even know what the product was like, what the product was about. And so when people were saying, you know, what is this or this is a scam, versus in our office, the receptionist say, you know what, I'm sorry that's your impression.
Right.
But I work here, and they're like, I'm also, and I go to like high school, and all my friends work here, so I don't know what you heard. I'm so sorry that you heard. Like, and that's automatic. It's not. So we have to really do things like that, like the strawberry. Oh, you know that strawberry? Well, doesn't even remember that that's strawberries. We have to continue to train then this is a great opportunity. That's why getting current reps is that ideal scenario. But next best scenario is getting someone from a network of someone who is to enroll in the company.
I love it.
That or higher standard treatment.
So all about shaping the mentality here. So in terms of role playing the objections, what I would suggest everybody is that you just go through each objection individually. So you do it once, then she would do it once, and then you go back and forth, and then the next layer of it would be then you include the script with the objections, and you go back and forth for about 10 minutes. Okay, now let's go, so say number 3 complete.
Number 3.
All right, number 3 complete. Let's talk about number 4 of the 5 basics, which would be creating urgency. So we are, oh sorry, let's see, there we go. So we are playing Mel's video, debriefing, filling in the blanks. Here are additional manager add-ins for you. So just reviewing the importance of the 5 steps to schedule and making sure that they can tell you why each step is important, right? So why do we get the PR schedule first, right? Because, you know, it's an unexpected call, so we want to work around them, you know? Why do we write down their schedule in a notebook? Why is that important to get their full schedule and repeat back whatever they said? And do that for each of the 5 steps to make sure that it's clear for them. And then we really want to emphasize how important it is to not have weenie, wimpy, lacking confidence type of verbiage. And an analogy I use, again, what I'm trying to do is teach you analogies, right, that you're not going to be getting from these videos that you can ultimately add in to beef up your training. So I use the example of a guy asking a girl out. You always get a good laugh, and I say, ladies, let's say, you know, if a guy's going to ask a girl on a date, and he's like, hey girl, do you like maybe like want to go maybe out sometime? Versus, hey girl, you want to go out sometime? Like, you know, the difference of confidence is huge, right? And how we're perceived, right? So confidence is big, okay? And also talking to them about how people are natural procrastinators, right? So people naturally want to put things off. So the sooner we get them in, the better. So we schedule them same day and sooner, the more likely that they are to show. There are plenty of same day PR phrases, by the way, that you can utilize and print out for your girls so that they have them. Another huge component here that isn't in the videos is making sure that they understand the importance of not scheduling too far out. And this is something that I even confirmed with Jeff before including here, so we're on the same page. But I think one thing that really holds managers back in their show is like a girl will talk to somebody on a Sunday, the caller says they're not available till Thursday, and then they're like, oh, let me see what I have on Thursday, right? So then we're booking people on a Sunday for Thursday interviews. Not cool, people. So what I would suggest is that you only do like the next 2 days out. So on a Sunday, you're only booking for a Monday, Tuesday. On a Monday, you're only booking for Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday. So much so that you could teach the caller to say, hey, you know what? I don't have my manager scheduled for Thursday as of right now because we have so many applicants applying and I did want to give you a priority schedule. We only really book our interviews 2 days in advance, but I can give you a call back on Thursday to see if we still have anything available. Right? That's what I would suggest. I think it would be huge for increasing show versus just setting to set.
Do you guys understand that concept? Same thing with booking demos, right? But we haven't done this in a while. Some of you, without just in this detail, will have receptionists say, yeah, I needed you at the other meeting. And the receptionists say, oh, yeah, we're available next week. In fact, I have time for the whole summer. When do you want to come in? Like, there's just no urgency.
Right.
But as we know, same day is the best. Next day's okay. Beyond that, they're pretty much not showing.
Yep.
If you knew that anyway, why set?
Right. Huge. And then how to role play the 5 steps to schedule portion here. I would give an example of the 5 basics done incorrectly. So maybe you do it and you don't ask for the schedule first. Or maybe you do it and you don't ask, hey, is there anything else getting in the way? Or maybe you have wimpy words or you schedule too far out. And then you ask them, hey, what did I do wrong? What do I need to fix? So again, it gives them the opportunity to hear it done the wrong way to see if they can point it out. And then again, role playing correctly. All right, so everybody say number 4 complete.
Number 4 complete.
All right, the 5th and final 5 basics, everybody, which is firming it up, right? So again, we'll play Mel's 2-minute video, debrief, review the notes, fill in the blanks. And ultimately here with the firm up, we want to make sure that we get across, now that we're not taking time to do like the old school step-by-step directions, we want to talk about the importance of the visual direction to the office. So we give the address, right? But then we're going to say, hey, we're in a complex that is a brown brick building. We're around the right side of the complex. You're going to see the awning 2805. You're going to walk in. We're going to be the first suite on the first floor. It's 102. It's pretty hard to miss. So any of those brief visual directions for what to do once they get to your complex is definitely something that you want to be role playing and practicing, because I do think that it makes a difference. You want to talk about how important it is, not to rush the final steps of the interview, because I think sometimes callers, especially when they're new, they're like, oh, I got it set, I'm good, I'm done, right? Versus taking the time to make sure that the applicant is really writing it down or building up the manager and really ending it the right way. So talk about a lasting impression, right? We get to be the first impression, but we're also the lasting impression. An analogy I like to use is, hey, if you're running a 5-mile race and you are 2 seconds from the finish line, are you gonna walk or are you gonna run? You're gonna run, you're gonna finish strong like a champion, right? And that's what we wanna do here as well. And then you would role play the firm up portion for about 10 minutes. Okay, and then at this point, guys, you can transition into, Mel does have a video of actually walking through the entire script. So you could play that for them. It's about 10 minutes. And then from there, I would then take the initiative to role play all the 5 basics combined, because they've been introduced to everything at that point. Okay, so let's take another 15 seconds and debrief a couple takeaways with your partner.
What? Just all of it? I wrote it all down.
The one page. Here's my
Yep, I can give you like script
I'm just loading on the analogies.
Oh, great.
All right.
Even more clarifying.
Get it in.
She's gonna give us in charge of one page.
I guess I need a whistle.
This is what I talk about.
I don't know how to whistle, so thank you. All right, so who's gonna be the brave soul to share takeaway from this last section? What we got?
So Eric's was the objection for, or how to explain to them to create more urgency. I'm like, oh, I don't know my manager's schedule for that, but I can call and see if I'm still on the spot. I was reaching out about that.
I like it. I like it. Give me one more. Mike.
The connection book, oldie but a goodie for me.
Oh yeah, I love the connection.
Yeah, the
book. I
connection
really
book
do.
is great. I haven't heard that in a while, so that was good. And just making sure that they, not only that they keep it, but the manager revisiting it during the staff meeting at the end of the week with them. That was a really great point, because I don't think I've ever done that. So that was a good reminder.
Cool. And I want to say too, the connection book is something that I innovated and created after I think 4 summers of doing this, and I'm sharing it with a lot of you now, which is pretty cool, right? So again, to help shorten the learning
Can I
curve.
make a comment for, raise your hand if you have assistants. Okay, based on my notes from last year, it was like an adamant note of debrief. And what I know as to be important is PRs. Our assistants, when they come for the extra day, we're going to train them. Like whatever she's talking about, we're going to do to them. And we're going to role play, and we're going to talk about the strawberries. Luke's going to talk about the strawberries. And we're going to make sure that they understand how to be a reception or an RA, because they essentially are an RA as part of their position. So just food for thought. Thanks, Sam.
Awesome. All right, let's say number 5 complete.
Number 5, complete.
All right, so some additional add-ins here. We would also want to go over the PR calling procedure. That's something that isn't in the videos. So explaining why double tapping is important. And if we don't explain, I think the mentality behind double tapping, I found that some callers do feel uncomfortable about it for some reason. Right, so you just explain how, hey, if you don't recognize the number, how sometimes you don't answer, but hey, if it calls you twice, What does that mean? It's pretty important. And you just say, hey, we reach so many more people on that second call. So making sure they have the right impression of that, they feel good about it, that the expectation for the PR calling procedure is 25 to 30 calls. One thing I teach the girls to do is actually on their trackers, they would star number 25 for each hour. So they know that that's a focus of how many calls that they want to be making. That we take out the not interested and not qualified out of the system and just make sure that things are marked appropriately. You could also show them an example of a tracking sheet and how we mark an X for somebody that we spoke to but didn't schedule. And then I typically would teach them to write next to the X's if they didn't schedule somebody, why, right? So that way we can dive in and know what's going on. Was somebody not interested? Was it a callback? Were they not qualified? That way we can better help and diagnose.
Just so you know, I have her PowerPoint, so I'm gonna put it to PDF, redistribute, so don't stress out the notes, and you'll have the pictures. To me, the pictures are the most important because, like, seeing the objection script with the objection cycle at the top, see what a tracker should look like. You have a picture of the tracker board?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yep.
of course you do, I'm sorry, of course you do. So you'll see, how many of you have done receptionist program, been part of it? It's like, oh yeah, I remember.
All
Yeah,
coming
so
back.
Right now I go, oh yeah, and I'm a division manager, so.
And one thing I told Jeff, everybody, that I will do too is a lot of the analogies and things of that nature. I'm gonna bullet point, I think, what's most important. That way you guys have a one-page handout that you'll be able to use that goes along with it. Yay! All
Write
right.
it down.
Cool. So we mark an X for people we spoke to but didn't schedule, slash if somebody didn't answer, highlight for setting or circling. And then we also want to show them, how we track on a whiteboard, which I'll show you when we get to setting up our Sunday calling. As far as entering, we want to make sure that they understand and they need to be entering their PRs at the end of the shift, not during or not from home, right? It's very important that they do it before they leave the office. We want to make sure that they don't enter PRs as a new call. They would need to match it to the person that recommended so that person can get credit. And marking the secondary source is important as well, so we know what kind of PR it is. And making sure that they press confirm and finish call so that it actually saves, otherwise it doesn't show up in the system as a set, right? So those are things that you would want to review. All right, so before we would have them role play, I think the most important thing, again, I'm big on mentality if y'all haven't figured that out by now. So here are my 4 PR beliefs, if you will, that I teach callers. And I'm gonna briefly, share these with you so that you know how this goes. So I say, first and foremost, we're not bothering people. And it's very important that we have that mentality because you'll talk to somebody where maybe when they answer, they sound like they're busy or they're annoyed. But you know what? You're not a mosquito. Okay, that's annoying. You're offering an opportunity that's gonna help people. And even if they don't schedule, okay, it's not like they're gonna be thinking about it 3 hours later, like, dang, I can't believe that person called me and offered me $14.50 in a flexible schedule. They're gonna forget about it. And honestly, I use the example of, I always bring up Orlando, who was called on a Sunday. He woke up from a freaking nap on that Sunday, and he still came in for his interview. And look at him now, ladies and gentlemen, look at him now. So that's a great example to use. The second belief that we want to teach is that if we make enough calls, people will answer. Because sometimes they're like, oh my God, nobody's answering. And then you look at their tracker and they made like 3 calls. It's like, give me a break, right? You got to make more calls. We can't control who answers the phone, but what can we control? How many calls that we make, right? And tell them, hey, it's a numbers game. So you want to be, slow with the quality of your call, but really fast with your dialing. I tell them, imagine that your fingers are like hot potato and every digit you press, you're extinguishing the fire. So just move quickly. Also tell them about the law of attraction. When they call a name on a list, like expect them to answer. Expect them to schedule, right? The third belief, I don't care about rude callers. All right, this is big because, hey, sometimes they're going to talk to people that they woke up on the wrong side of the bed or they just permanently live that way, right? So I tell them, hey, look, at the end of the day, you are truly one of the most important people in my organization. So it is not worth letting somebody else in a bad mood dole your shine or steal your crown. I don't think so. So allowing it to affect you for more than 5 seconds is more a waste of your energy than is ever really needed, right? There's 7 billion people in this world, so don't let one person with bad attitude, ruin yours. I also use the analogy of a firefighter. What do firefighters do? Save people, right? Now imagine if a firefighter every day went into their job thinking about the people that they weren't able to save. Do you think they would do their job effectively? No, they're thinking about the difference that they're making. So same thing here. And then the fourth belief is what I do makes a difference, right? So sometimes you have to ask them, hey, what is your perspective of what you do? Do you think you're just making a lot of calls and, talking to rude people? Or do you realize the bigger picture here of what you're doing to help people as a result of getting them in the door? And how the power of one conversation and your connection, it ultimately can change a life, and it's going to be because of what you're doing. Whether they choose to stay with the company for years, maybe a couple months, or maybe they just come in for an interview. Either way, they're going to get professional skills, they're going to learn, and they're going to grow, right? So making sure that they have that right mentality in place. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in now. So we've got the training portion completed, and we want to dive into how do we actually role play correctly. So I'm going to give you a couple keys for this. One of my favorite things to ask after they're done with their role play, hey, what do you think that you did well? Have them tell you, right? And then I like to ask, hey, what do you want to work on? Where do you want to improve? Versus saying, hey, here's where you messed up. You were really fast. Because here's the thing, people naturally go on the defensive. So if you ask them, what do you want to work on? Sometimes they're going to be able to tell you, right? And then it kind of opens the door for communication and being open to feedback. Or sometimes when you say, hey, what do you want to work on? What do you want to improve? They'll be like, I'm not really sure. Can you tell me? Ding, ding, ding. Now you have golden opportunity to go in and offer feedback because you got permission first. So just something to keep in mind. And then I say, hey, what questions do you have? What are you not sure about? And let's go through it together. Now, the best way to point out an area of opportunity, guys, I'm telling you, I believe that this is truly fire in getting actually creating change that you would want to see from your caller. So like let's just use an example of a new girl is really fast over the info of the job, which is typically the case. They're like speeding through, cut code, blah, 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 pay rate really, really fast. So here's what you do. You pause and you say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for you once exactly how I heard you do it. And you're going to do it for them really, really fast, the way that you heard it. And then you're going to do it correctly, the appropriate speed. And then you're going to say, hey, what did you notice that I did different the second time around? And you know what they're going to say? Oh, yeah, I really noticed that you slowed down there, or you really emphasized on the pay rate, right? And then what you do after that is have them do it correctly how you just did it. It really helps. And I've actually gone line by line with the entire script that way. You could even do that with direct approach or closing or really anything if you need somebody to change their tonality or certain ways that they're doing things. So that would be my recommendation for you for the role play portion. All right, so let's break it up. 10 seconds. Hot.
I one thing.
Okay.
The number one key in sales training that I've experienced, that I've taught, I also have learned from all my mentors, and those of you that know, I coached for John. I actually got a lifetime with John in Austin, Texas, and he always comes back to role play. Role play is the number one sales tool because people are actualizing, people are doing it. There's muscle memory and the mental memory of doing it. It's why we talk about running seminars. It doesn't matter if you're good. There's role play scenario. Get out the kinks. Cool. Okay, now you can do Sammy.
Awesome. 10 seconds. Turn to your partner. Hot idea. Cool takeaway so far. Just break it up a little bit. What we got?
What do you want to work on versus I fix it with my mind. There you go.
Whoa! So you got the skill.
Just getting going.
All right. What we got? Give me a takeaway. What's hot?
Slow with the quality of your call, but fast with the dialing was like.
Ooh, I like it. Whoa, give me one more. One more. I'll call somebody up. I got it.
Like the do it wrong so that they can point out what should fix and what needs to get better.
That's big. Cool. Great. Thank you for sharing. So let's.
Comment too, this is on correction, right?
Yes.
Don't correct people as they're making the call.
Right.
You can laugh all you want, and I laugh to myself sometimes. Don't correct the rep when they're making a terrible phone call. And ready? You're all gonna start looking down in shame right now. Someone's making a phone call, saying, "Oh, Mrs. Jones, if you're at Cutco and knives," and you go, read the script. Like you're not gonna make them better by jacking them up when they're already jacking it up in the middle of jacking it up. You guys know what I'm saying? So it's like let the pain simmer, let them die on the call. It doesn't matter. Say, great, hey, you open feedback. Just quit. Hey, you feedback. Are you open feedback? Hey, can I give you coaching? That's it. After. Not in the middle. I see a lot of new managers go like, now one thing I think is okay is when you just go, that's it. But not like trying to coach them and tell them and it's like,
Yeah.
that's not gonna do anything. If anything, that's gonna frustrate them. That's already more frustrating than a bad call. The bad call with you accentuating the bad call.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think that's a wonderful point. And if we want to think about working with a new caller, almost like training a new puppy, right? So if a puppy, pees on the carpet and you don't tell them right away after the fact that that's not what you want them to do, to give that corrective action, they're just going to keep doing it, right? The same concept of do the best you can to give the feedback immediately after, to give them the opportunity to actually create the change that you want to see. All right, so let's dive into the next portion, which is how in the world would we, first of all, what do we want to be listening for on a call that could be incorrect? And then what would be the solutions to fixing that issue? So one of the most common things we find is that there's lack of confidence or awkwardness in the intro. Right? They're like, hi, this is so-and-so from Cutco, how are you doing? And it just doesn't flow well, right? So the solution to this, everybody, would be talking about the importance of first impression, right? And again, letting them hear the difference between it done correctly versus incorrectly. Another huge problem for new callers is when the speed or tonality is off, or they're just way off script and they're winging it. Okay, solution for that. When I've had girls that are really fast, I have them create a sign that they keep in front of their computer or desk that says slow down as a reminder. So you can give them slow down signs. Have them, like we discussed earlier, have them mark in the script where the punctuation is so they know where to breathe. And having them keep the script in front of them at all times if they are someone that has a tendency to wing it and go off script. Another big problem that we can often find is when the rapport is either ingenuine because they're going so quickly, or they're not really building any rapport, they're doing the okay thing, right? Or they're trying too hard, where it's like just chill. Over the top, like let's chill, right? So what's the solution to that? We can give them the rapport questions, like I referenced. There's plenty of documents that we can give to keep in front of them. Give them the opportunity to actually practice different scenarios, talk about different types of callers, like we referenced earlier, the chatty Cathys versus people that are more to the point. Another thing that can often be off is when they're not handling objections confidently, or they're just completely losing control of a conversation. So the solution here would be reviewing their mindset of objections, questions not being a bad thing, and practicing following up with a question. So I have them, by the way, when they're reading the script, especially when they're new, follow along with their finger or their pen so they can remember where they are in the approach. So if they get a question or objection, they're going to be able to find it and then know where they left off in the script, and that helps to avoid really awkward pausing and that lack of confidence. Another issue we can often find and want to look for is when they're offering the time too far out, when they're not pausing right before offering the time, or they just sound wimpy. Solution here would be to role play the 5 steps to schedule. Make sure they have the right mentality about getting somebody in as soon as possible. Ask them how they feel about that. Like, do you feel weird about scheduling for somebody for the same day? I mean, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, what do you think the benefits would be? And like, kind of show them the difference of, hey, when we schedule people same day, it's been proven, right, that it helps really increase the show. And if you can show them that, it can be very helpful in shifting their mindset. Another thing that we can listen for on the call, right, the firm up being rushed, or they're not really being a positive send-off, right? So I would talk, the solution here would be building up the manager they're going to be meeting with, giving some form of a genuine compliment, remembering something from earlier in the conversation, and again, just finishing strong. All right, so now we've kind of completed the diagnosis portion, solution portion. So we're going to make a move into talking about actually creating the kind of culture that we want and how to manage. And what I will say, once upon a time, when I ran my branch offices, you know, I learned a lot of great lessons. My first summer, I was really focused on, you know, the team and really connecting with people and not so much on the numbers and holding people accountable. Second summer, I got really focused on the results and not as much on connecting and appreciating people. So I found that great leadership, right, is a balance between knowing how to appreciate people, but also having the ability to hold them accountable and working those two things in tandem, okay? So a couple of keys here for, you know, really creating appreciation for opportunity and their effort. We want to treat callers like they want to be treated, take a genuine interest in them outside of the business, show them that you care, give them sincere compliments, make them feel like they could walk on water, you know, energy high fives. Think about what you can be doing to boost their confidence. A couple of key, my favorite confidence building phrases. Hey, you sure you've never done this before? You sound like a natural. It's an oldie but a goodie. Or hey, your first call is going to be the hardest one that you ever make. Can you imagine how much better you're going to be, you know, after 2-3 weeks, a month from now? Or hey, tell me why they're showing. Oh, I know, because they talk to you. That's one of my favorites. Or hey, how does it feel to be a difference maker in this organization? So just think about how powerful your words can be in boosting confidence and making them feel great. Sure?
This is one of those, oh, I remember. As much as, you know, you hear me say, can I give you some feedback? Are you open to feedback? I say that a lot. What I say more, are you open to a compliment? Can I tell you what you're doing right? Can I tell you what you did really well on that call? I do that more than I do the what you're not doing right. But you can't, because all you're doing is telling them what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, as 1 Minute Manager says way long ago, that some of you never even read. So if you're gonna catch people doing the right 1 minute trade, as soon as you see it, hey man, real quick, okay, you off the call? Good. Hey, can I show you? Can I give you some awesome observation? Yeah, I like how you did this, keep doing that. Guess what they do? They'll continue to do what you're recognizing. And then from here and there, slowly but surely, and just kind of have a, I don't know, I have like a mental tally. How many times have I corrected in an hour of the day? And I'm aware of that not being more than the times I've given. And if you genuinely are trying and still can't find more improvements, then you probably need to find perceptions. Right? You probably be in fact, for me, I have like the spider sense, Batman, radar. I know it in the first 40 hours usually. Usually if I'm going to replace what you see, you know, you just know, I'll be like, I need to staff it up.
Not gonna work out. One thing, because here's the deal, I do actually empathize and understand when running an office, there's so much going on, right? And sometimes it is hard to give the time and attention that we wish we could to our callers to help them get better. And I think one thing that can be really helpful in showing appreciation and still keeping your finger on the pulse, I would set time in your schedule every Tuesday night at the end of the evening, like look at where your callers are from a Sunday, right? Because then you're gonna have good indication from Sunday calling how the shows are. And what I used to do, I literally set an alarm in my phone, and girls that were doing good so far, I would send them a quick appreciation, like, hey, you rocked it from Sunday so far, I just wanted to let you know, like, here's how you're pacing, thank you so much. So I think in terms of appreciation, Tuesday night is a great time to do that.
Yeah.
Because you can see how you're pacing for the week.
And one thing too, part of why I'm running the Sundays is I'm gonna do a lot of recognition on that call too. Now it's in the form of a mani-pedi contest, in the form of a Lululemon contest, in the form of a gift certificate contest. But you know, the prizes cause me to say, I wanna recognize all the receptionists, all of our RAs who are out there getting at least 10 or 15 sets, but their minimum 35% show. Here are the honorable mentions. And I'm gonna go and give you an opportunity after the call to say, hey, nice job, next time let's get you the drawing. Like, I'm setting it up on a platter for you to have a encouragement conversation or a, hey, Erica, man, that's the second week in a row you're in the mani-pedi contest. I know you didn't win it, but man, nice job, keep it up. It's just, we need to, it is a hard, and I wanna be careful because if you put words into what the job is, it becomes that as you teach it, right? It is not an easy job. It's definitely repetitive. So I think it's important that we're aware of that. And we just have to imagine doing phone time, all day phone jam, SC2, and that was your job for 3 days in a row. That's what you're doing. I'll put that into context again. Imagine your all day phone jam for a push, but you do it 3 days in a row every week, that's your job. That's their job. So there's some challenges to that. There's some engagement issues with that. So empathize and be wary.
Great.
Thank you.
A couple of things in terms of helping to boost their conviction and the opportunity. I like to invite them to a team meeting during the goal period when things are really rocking. And I used to point out, like on our top 10 board for the week, like which PR caller actually set them for the interview. And they love to see that because they're like, wow, I'm really contributing here, and it makes them feel great. I used to create an MVP slide for my recruiting assistants. I actually introduced them in training. So if you're a one-man show in a branch, that's a great thing to do. So then it doesn't seem like you're alone, and you're really not, because you have them as callers and it builds them up. I used to introduce them to the training class too, actually. Big thing is just make sure they leave the office always feeling good, right? Just like when we PDI a rep after a bad appointment, like we want to make sure that they leave that phone call like feeling okay or going into action, making more calls. And same thing with your caller, like if they had an off shift. Oh man, one of the things I used to love to do if the caller had an off shift is I would have them speak to a rep that like just sold a touchdown or was in like a really good state or frame of mind, and actually talk to that caller to like just kind of shift their perspective so they could leave the office feeling good. I would have them help create the, I don't know if I'm old school, so if you guys are still doing the certificates for how much is sold for the week, I used to have my callers help write those so that they could see what was happening in the office. I used to do...
It's a double win, you get work done too.
Yeah, might as well be efficient. I used to do Sunday meetings or Sunday meeting themes, so that's a great thing to do from a culture standpoint. I have a list of that, by the way. If y'all be interested, I can share. All right, so those are some things in regards to appreciation, boosting conviction. So let's move on to the second component, which of course is the accountability, right, to the standards and really daily management. So I think it comes down to, making sure that you have daily goals for how many PRs we want set, how many, same day we want scheduled, and tracking that, on the whiteboard is important. So like letting them know basically how many hours they're working, times that by 2, and at a minimum, that should be the PR goal for the day. I think you should create a standard where they need to be checking in with you either in person, or if you're in training, it's a text message at the beginning of their shift, as well as at the end of their shift, so you know what's going on. Or if you wanted to, you could do every hour, text me how many calls, how many scheduled. I actually used to, in my branch, because of the way that it was set up, my callers were in the back of the room, like way back of the office, so I didn't really have my finger on the pulse of what was going on. So every hour, she'd come out and let me know, thumbs up meant she scheduled 2 to 3 that hour. This meant like 1 to 2, and none was this. And that way I knew, even if I was like running an interview or doing something, I had like some semblance of an idea of what was going on. So that's one thing that you could do. I think you want to be specific about which lists you want her to call. Don't just say, here's a pile of PRs, good luck, right? I would be very specific. You could even rank your PRs. We used to star like 3-star, like studs, 2 is okay, 1 is like right? And make sure that you're giving your best list to your best callers. So be specific about, what list you want them to be calling, essentially, because then it just gives clarity for what you want to get done within that time frame. Okay, now most necessary accountability conversations. Who wants to be late to a shift? Who wants to be late to a shift? Okay, all right, so let's say late to a shift. I would say, hey, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Everything's okay? Oh, okay, well, I was looking at my watch and, I saw we were 15 minutes after the time we were supposed to be here. What happened?
I just got caught up in traffic.
You got stuck in traffic? Ooh, and I kind of give like a puke face or like a, you know, we can't have that happen again. So here's the deal. You're going to be paid obviously from the time that you show up, not just when you were scheduled. And just because I'm, you know, nice and I care about you doesn't mean that the standards that we set don't apply. So can I count on you to make sure that this is not something that continues to happen? Okay, so that would kind of be the outline of that conversation. Let's say we have somebody not following the script or objections. Who wants to be that guy? What is your name?
Christina.
Christina, okay. So let's say not following the script. So I would praise first, something good. Hey Christina, I want to let you know your tonality is awesome. Now I noticed there was one section here in the script. Can you just show me where in the script it says that?
I don't think it's in the script. I just feel like it's a good thing to say in the moment.
Yeah, and I totally get you, and I appreciate your insight there. I know we talked about in training. I know we talked about in training, you know, how important it is to follow the script, right? It's like the best recipe for brownies. No need to change it up, right? So hey, let's try it one more time, and I'm gonna do it real quick correctly, and then you'll do it, and then you just do it correctly, being on script, and then you have her do it correctly, being on script, to take that corrective action. All right, so let's pause for a quick second. Let's do 10 seconds of takeaway.
Quick comment, so when you're managing, back to Women and Manager, this is why this book applies so much more. It's worth the read before the summer, by the way. Worth the, 15 minutes, but most people, hour and a half read, hour read maybe. Right, Women and Managers worth how long? Hour and a half. But
Hour and 22.
you have to really, you have to be able to do it immediately, okay? So if someone's not following directions, someone's late. But also, so there's timing purposes. So let me give you an example. If I'm about to run a group interview, and I hear something bad, okay? Like, what you don't want to do is bring it up but not address it. If you bring it up, you have to address it. So for example, hey, the shows are really off and I didn't on the script you weren't following it, but I'll talk to you after the interview. It's like when Heidi says, hey, can we talk later, something I'm not feeling good about. I'll call you later.
What?
Right? So it's, hey, real quick, but what I'd like to do is, hey ladies, I'm about to run an interview. We're a little bit behind, so I definitely want positive, encouraging things right before you step out, but you have to address immediately, like the late thing, you gotta do that immediately. And you can role play that a couple times, but really important. And she had some cool ways of saying it, just for me, addressing the action, not the person. That's all, that's the main thing you operate from.
And I do have these combos scripted out, by the way, so if you want access to that might be helpful, just so you have a frame of reference. If you need it. Okay, wonderful. So let's dive into the last component of things here, everybody, which would be driving a productive Sunday phone jam, okay? So, I know I'm super cheesy, but I had to do it. All right, so in terms of making sure we prepare the right way, right? A couple of key things for preparing is I like to print out their stats for the week. You know, I write a little appreciation note for them. We have the weekly stats board updated for recognition, so you could have something like this in your office, you know, which has the stats for the week, just to give you an idea. Interview times in the system. Here, let's go back to the preparation. All right, so you have interview times in the system. Your calling board is going to be set up. Your call trackers are ready to go. The list of who set up who for interviews. I love to do that for the launch class. I let them know who is responsible for scheduling the interview. Making sure that if a representative has a list of mostly non-local names, I would find out from the rep, you know, have them star or highlight which ones are local, so that way the girls aren't wasting their time. Doing some form of an initial rep call is also very helpful, so that way the rep has a reminder and a heads up that we're going to be reaching out to their friends and doing the whole, hey, just check it out, no type deal. So those are a few key things in regards to preparing the right way. And then let's dive into how are we actually going to set the right expectations for the phone jam and really drive a productive jam. So setting individual and team goals, so doing it on the whiteboard, hours times 2, creating an overall team mission. So let's say your goal for the night is 50 or 60. Maybe you have a mission 60, right? And every time that somebody gets one set, they lower that mission, just like we would, you know, potentially for a phone jam, so that everybody can be tied in. Always double tapping, calling or turning in call trackers at the end of the night. making sure that they enter all their PRs before they leave, marking the secondary source. If they ever go 30 minutes without scheduling, my philosophy is to switch to a different list. At that point, no point in beating a dead horse. If they go on a 30-minute break with 7 hours of calling, that's fine, but we want to make sure that we set the precedent that they be back in their seats, on time and ready to make calls, cleaning up after themselves before they leave. Now, in terms of protecting the energy and the culture for the jam, a couple things I've found that's really helpful is breaking up your callers into mini teams. So even if you only had 2 callers, you have 1 versus 1. Or if you have 4, you have 2 versus 2, or 6, 3 versus 3, and you have like a cool little contest or competition going on between those parties. I found it's really helpful for just driving culture, competition, excitement. Definitely a great thing to do. I usually set the precedent too that at the end of every hour, they stand up, high five. Anybody that's been to Tony Robbins, we used to do like make your move, say yes at the end of the hour, just to like recharge, right? And be focused for that next hour. Sometimes I'd pass out candy periodically or raffle tickets for prizes and things of that nature during great hours. Important to set the precedent that we're not going to be sharing negativity about a rude caller. Okay, that's very, very important to protect our culture here. So I tell them the only thing that I want you ever vocalizing, right, to your neighbor is positivity. So it's like, hey, I just got off the phone with Sally. It was awesome. She's definitely coming in. Like, I'm fired up, And if I ever caught anything that was negative, I would be like, hey, is that positive or negative, Mike? Like, I'll call it out so you can protect that energy of your jam. I think that's important. You can periodically go in and say, hey, what did you learn about your applicant that you just scheduled? Why do you think that they're going to show? That's a great thing to do. If you have a girl that is struggling, or if her attitude is off, don't let it affect everybody else. You can definitely take her to the side to kind of protect that energy. This is a big one too. If a rep quit, and let's say they're calling a list of a rep that quit, I think it's important that you don't just say, oh yeah, like Johnny quit, so we're not going to call his list anymore. The reason I say that, there was one time I specifically remember I was running my Sunday kickoff. One of the AMs came in and was like, hey, we're not calling so-and-so's list anymore because they quit. Right in the middle of my kickoff. I was like, what? Right? So you want to make sure that you frame it the right way and you say, hey, I actually have another list that I'd rather you focus on that I think is going to be better for you. I think that's a better way to frame it, right? Because we want them feeling good when they're about to get on the phone and when they are on the phone.
When they say, if they say, well, what happened to Johnny? You say, we don't speak about Johnny.
Well, you can just say, he used our experience, for what he wanted to, and he's moved on to other opportunities. Like, I think that there's another way to say that versus like, oh, he just quit, it just didn't work out, right? So framing it and teeing it the right way is big. Now, what do we do if our girl is doing really well? Let's say she's had 2 hours back to back, like she's booked 3. She's on a roll. I think about when we talk about, our reps doing well, like they're selling homemakers, ultimates, we're not just gonna be like, slow down, right? We're gonna keep challenging them. And I think that's the same concept. So you want to praise, you want to speak well of this girl to the others, give her the best list. I think that's something you could do. Challenge her to beat her personal best, right? When a girl isn't doing well, what do? Well, we can take them aside. We can look at their list, check for if they've been getting a lot of wrong numbers, a lot of not qualified, have them switch lists. If they're not doing well too, you can check to see how many calls they made. If they've only made like 7 to 10 calls for the hour, we got to talk to them about making more calls. And boost their morale too, and say, hey, like everybody has off hours. Not a big deal. It's not how you start. It's how you finish, right? We want to finish strong. One of my favorite things to do, I'm telling you, this works. If a girl is struggling, I point to a name and I say, tell me my brand. So I point to a random name and I say, call Brandon. Brandon is broke. Brandon really needs your help. He's looking for work. He's gonna appreciate that you're calling. Call him right now. And I used to do, and I'm telling you, I know this sounds crazy, but I've never had to do that more than like 3 to 4 times, and then a girl actually schedules someone, and it just completely changes their perception and mentality. And we used to have this running joke in our office where it's like, Sam, do the thing. I need you to point to a name because it works, right? so do that to change their perception if they've had a couple off hours. You can even do that, by the way, for your reps when they're phone jamming. It's like, Susie just used her crappy night. She needs you. Call her right now. I used to do it all the time. All right. If they're not approving within 2 to 3 hours, guys, if they've gone like 3 hours without scheduling, I would say maybe you just send them home early. I mean, that's what we used to do, just because I don't know what you think about that, Jeff, but I don't.
One more time?
I was saying if they went like 3 hours without scheduling anyone, I may send them home early, just so that we're not having them on the clock.
I do that all the time, and it made them work harder, because then they would come in the next day, hey, do you have any list, like, they wanted a list to call, because they knew that meant, less hours meant they're on their way out.
Right. So I would suggest that if they go more than 3 hours, you could send them home a little bit early and just say, hey, we're not gonna make a habit of leaving early. Everybody has off hours, but hey, let's come in Monday and we're gonna be ready to rock and roll, right? All right, so overall, everybody, let's just talk about, now we have the culture, so how do we maintain it? All right, so a couple quick keys for that, and then we'll be wrapping up. So say what you mean, and mean what you say, following through on your word, communicate desired results as clearly as possible, respond as soon as possible, never forget to say thank you. They do work so hard. So honestly, even just a simple thank you makes all the difference. Pay accurately and on time. You tell them you're going to pay them at a certain time, you got to find a way. When you aren't in an interview, when you aren't in training, when you aren't on campus, be with your callers as much as possible.
Let me comment on that. You should do PDI in the receptionist room. The only thing you don't do is anything that has to be one-on-one, like a pre-screen is one-on-one, a 5-star interview is one-on-one. If you're running training, you're just not in the room. But other than that, everything should be
PR call.
right, and you do your PR.
Yep, that's huge. You can even create competition with them. If you're on a roll,
I
you're
just
like,
talked to this awesome kid.
Yeah,
and
like-
you do what you want them to do.
like who's gonna beat me? Things of that nature. And you can create a great culture and competition in that aspect. Another big one, guys, is never vent to your callers about poor quality applicants. Okay, you'd be surprised, but I've heard managers do that just when they get frustrated. Karina, do you want to add something?
Yeah. I feel like that's a super obvious point, but when you're a branch and you're by yourself, you want to be like friends with your receptionist. So it's like natural to vent to them about stuff, but that's huge. Like you never want to.
Yes.
Yeah, well, hey guys, just coming from the lovey-dovey division, which we have a moniker of being sometimes. Like, your reps are not ready. Your reps are not your kids. Although some of you say that, that's not. The reps are not your kids. I know you say it. Don't say that. The reps are not your kids. You're the leader. You're not. And the receptionists are not your friends or your buddies. Otherwise, you're not running a business. It's like, you're just hanging out, right? So you're the employer, and not as in a power trip way, but and Luke will talk about this mystique/separation way. It's really important to have that not even a fine line, that hard line, I would say.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And then always doing the initial rep call, like I referenced earlier, before we call through lists. Maybe even, sending out, especially for like rep driven and whatnot, sending out having the rep send good luck texts to their friends that were scheduled for interviews when it's rep driven, I think is something that can very much so help with show. Making sure lists are marked properly, so not qualified, not interested, or not in the area, so we're not recalling the same names over and over. So being organized with that process is very helpful for efficiency. And more importantly than anything else, I think just being forward thinking, right? Painting vision, for what you're building, and constantly be appreciating, right? But having that accountability. So let's take 10 seconds here to do a little debrief, and then we'll wrap up with my closing. All right, so 10 seconds of debrief here.
Go. Hey.
What's hot? What new ideas?
competitive and going.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. One or two more, what we got?
Eddie likes the idea of inviting into a team meeting.
Yeah, that's big. I would definitely do it like right, maybe during SC1, but when things are popping. Right, really exciting. Take one more.
Appreciation notes on the vector life sheet.
Great. All right. Well, in closing, guys, we've talked about, right, how to train, leverage these videos from the region, how to really diagnose, right, what to listen for on a call, how to fix it, some of the ways that we can daily manage, right, and as well on a Sunday, how to show the right appreciation, how to have the accountability. So what I want to wrap up with today, if you will, just some Cutco life wisdom, if you will, from the years that I've been in the business. For those of you that are new managers, I say to you, if this is your very first summer going out, I remember the feeling of just being really excited, you know, being a little nervous, not knowing what to anticipate or what to expect, and wanting to plan everything to a T, and really wanting to do things absolutely perfect and really just prove that I can do it. And what I want to say to those of you that are new is it's never going to go exactly according to the plan. All you can ever really do is honestly just have the best attitude that you can, work as hard as you can, and constantly find ways to continue to learn and continue to grow. So what I say to those of you that are new, don't show up to prove this summer, but continue to just find ways to improve. Okay? And for those of you that are my vet managers with more experience, okay, maybe this is your 4th summer, 5th summer, 10th summer, who knows? Mike, I don't know, what is it, 11? 11? Okay. What I say to you guys that are vets, I think that you probably reached a place where you know what your strengths are, right? You know what you're good at. You know what your areas of opportunity might be. We know where we're competent. And sometimes if we're not careful, you know, Jeff hit on this earlier, we develop this sense of competence or like confidence going into the summer. You know, and many of us have had thoughts of maybe the PR program not being the strongest area of the business and saying, it's okay though, I'm really good at development. I'm really good at PPR or these other things, so I can find a way to make up for it. So what I really challenge you to do this summer is just think, man, if I got a little bit better at this program and I did what was necessary, what would it look like if I went from mediocre to good, or good to great, or great to excellent, right? And just find ways as a veteran manager to continue to be humble and stay hungry. So, that's what I have.